De Meo Corpore, Part 2. On the ring finger of my right hand, the knuckle closest to the nail is substantially inflamed compared to its twin, and has been for over 9 years. It is fractured, and a doctor said that any type of maintenance on it would be unnecessary and would only serve it cosmetically. So nothing was ever done about it. But I was told that I would develop arthritis in it at an early age. It resulted from one of two mishaps, or the result of the two compounding to make a mess of things. The first was from playing dodgeball at school and having one of the balls thrown right at the tip of the said finger, jamming it and leaving it in pain. Such a thing had happened before, and there were no long-term ill effects. The second mishap occurred that very day, or at least in close proximity to the first. My father rolled my hand up in the window of the car, and it caught on that finger, which I believe caused an ugly, sickening pain. It seems more likely that the latter deserves the credit. I have forever picked at my thumbs, tearing the skin. The perimeter surrounding the thumbnail, that whole area, I ravage with my other fingers. There wasn't a time when I did not exercise this. Presently, my left thumb is unspoiled, but not my right. Maybe it's some sort of left-brain conflict. I am not sure why this habit survives. Maybe preoccupation, constantly turning over some dilemma in the back of the mind while attempting to concentrate on a new situation. I wonder if it is a scheme of the subconscious to alert the conscious into addressing some troubling unfinished business. I have tried using bandages to extinguish the assault, but I always tear them off in the end, which I think I do with even more savagery, and then I go right on a pickin'. I used to sweat profusely at my armpits, an affliction that began the very day that I saw the Diary of Anne Frank for the first time. It was the 8th grade, and I was wearing a red Eddie Bauer shirt that was too large for me. I remember being very self-conscious about the massive dark red sweat stains that had accumulated in a very short time. I have since always worn 2 shirts, a smaller undershirt and then the chosen top. Only within the last year have I behaved any differently. The sweating began shortly before lunch, and it remained a problem for the next 6 years. I'm not sure how I conquered my horrible gland calamity, but I wear far more smiles now than I did in those dark ages. The small of my back is also prone to a heavy sweat downpour. This happens only in a specific scenario, which is when a large amount of coffee is consumed. It usually takes place if I have been sitting down for a while with my back up against something drinking painfully hot and strong coffee. Sweat finds a cozy little home in the valley at the base of my back. I'm actually not 100% sure that the location of this sweat is technically considered the small. However, I really enjoy saying the small of my back. Coffee arouses change in my body in all sorts of wonderful and charming ways. The most delightful being that my urine inherits the smell of it after processing. I imagine that all people experience this. It happens to my friends, and they're all people. Another notable effect with food or beverage as its cause is the feeling that my organs and tissue are being pierced after I eat too many potato chips. This has taken place numerous times throughout my life. As a child, I sensed that it was the potato chips themselves clawing at me internally. I figured that when I chew the chips, somehow I manufacture some sort of jagged blade on the edges of each swallowed piece. Once inside, they do a number on me. I used to have violent stomach pains from the time I was a child until I was around 14 maybe. As a child, the pain was of a different type, but still excruciating. I was even taken to the hospital a couple of times to have an x-ray. I had to drink those malts, those chalky malts that push everything out of your system or whatever it is they do, and I had to wear a gown. Some blood work was done as well. As I got older, the pains evolved into a cramp. Different from a sickness, there was no need to vomit. My theory was that I somehow managed to pull a stomach muscle right behind the belly button as I slept. By the way, my button sticks out, which to some people is parallel with leprosy.
See, dude, I'm not real happy with the Audi. See?
There would be nights where the pain was so disgusting that I was not able to sleep. When I could, it had to be sitting up in a chair. Once, my parents purchased some cold medicine with the intention of it making me drowsy enough to nod off. I took more than what was recommended, specifically desiring the side effects. It really did the trick. I fell asleep quickly, waking up the next day cured and refreshed, and I have never had the pain since. I could sometimes tell when the pain was about to come on, half a day before it grew really nasty. When I would push on my belly button, it felt bruised on the other side. I knew. Extreme discomfort was on its way.
Look at that.
Since I was old enough to remember anything, I've been exceptionally interested in my bowel movements. I remember one time when I was very young, standing at the edge of my parents' bed late one night during an endearing spell of diarrhea, and updating them on the amount, consistency, and color of what was expelled. Carrying that concern into later years, the more recent years, I have conceived of certain methods for battling constipation. I will mention two of them. One method is to sit backwards on the toilet, which requires that one take off one's clothes. I have not concluded as to whether it is the weird sensation that is received from doing it that aids in your conquering the beast, or if it is the position that sitting such a way on a toilet forces you to adopt. The other method, and one can use this in conjunction with the first, is to imagine some sort of terrible plot that, if it was really happening, would instill one with intense anxiety and nervousness. I often project myself to a scene where I am being arrested for some grave offense that ends with me incarcerated for the remainder of my life. This has brought me victory as well. Whenever I have a consuming cough, due to a cold or flu or an itis of sorts, coupled with a superabundance of phlegm, I attempt to hack up as much of the phlegm as I am able.
There he is again.
And thankfully, once in a blue moon, it tastes of peanut butter. I spit it out and report to my contemporaries. I think that's the last of it. A behavior that I came to recognize only long after the completion of this work that I cannot let myself exclude from here is that often when I urinate, I see the continents of earth in the bubbles produced from contact of my urine with the water in the toilet.